of even for myself, like even in dating, like I think a lot of men have been quote unquote turned off because they assume that I'm only masculine because I'm successful in my career and I'm very like I
I
like
hate
sports.
that.
I know it gets me going, and that'll be a side tangent, but it's like no, like I get like that filled in that area, but I'm not going to be that way in every, like I didn't get to be a director at a company managing 300 therapists using my feminine traits, right? I got those using my masculine traits, right? I got that using those traits. And men and women both need masculine and feminine. And
Totally. I actually don't like using masculine and feminine. I think that they're just it's like they're just traits.
yeah, yeah.
Like
Yeah, I don't know.
who's to
Yeah,
say one's masculine and one's feminine? Do you
yeah,
know what I mean? Like I just we use word the way we use words is very it's so up to interpretation in a lot of ways, which is even the trauma conversation we had, right? A few minutes
yeah.
ago. It's like when someone's using trauma in one way and someone's using trauma in like the defined way or the clinically defined way like you are, you could end up having two totally different conversations. So anyway, the masculine feminine thing, I just like it's just like a label and I just hate it. But that doesn't matter. But I know what you mean. I mean I know what you mean by it, and that's what's important.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Good energies off each other though. Like if
yeah.
you know, it'll vibe off. Like I'm like, I'm sorry, like you asked me where we're going on our first date and you're mad that I'm acting masculine. Like someone had to put the pants on, right?
Oh my gosh. And you
Like,
know,
God dang it.
I totally agree with that. And you know what's funny? I think about, so I joke, but it's actually so true. I'm like, I'm thinking about starting to date. And I have no interest in dating apps. I have no interest in, I have talked to a couple matchmakers, and that's also very overwhelming. And, you know, one of the reasons is because, well, there's a lot of reasons, but like one of the big reasons that I struggle with it in its current state is one, I don't think people give people time. Like you don't, and someone would have you set the place that we're going to have dinner at for a date, take that as masculine, and then not go on the date and ghost you
Mm,
because people aren't they're not taking the time to get to know one another and see if there's like a genuine connection. It's all
mm,
these superficial or he said the wrong thing or my dry satire sarcasm gets misinterpreted all the time if you don't know me. And so like I've had that, especially when I was younger and I didn't have as much control as I do now over my emotions, or I would just be kind of like an asshole about it. But you know that kind of thing when you're dating, you know, for me, for example, I'll be like, do you have a preference food type or a preference of what you or anything you don't want to do? Because I do like planning dates. Even when I'm with someone, like I enjoy that. But you know, it is like a weird thing where people are almost afraid to say something, and then if someone does put the pants on, that becomes an issue. And it's like, well, if everything about this date or this communication is becoming an issue or a potential issue, kind of puts people in this like freeze mode and closed off mode, I think.
yeah. Yeah, it's hard because yeah, like you said, everyone's different and you have to take the time to understand what you're working with.
And
I
if you
just
want to,
yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I'm very much so in this like mindset of I don't know. Like I
no,
feel
say it.
I just feel like we're too lackadaisical with things, like in my opinion. Like
Hmm.
I'm very much so at this point where like I want to find my person. And I
Hmm.
think a lot of people are not ready for that. And like that's okay. And I think
100%.
sniff that out from like and men will tell you their intention if you ask them and
Hmm.
they won't directly be like oh I have no intention of like maybe making this serious or but there's like a subliminal way that they'll say that which is fine. I think something I've learned as I've gotten older is I believe who the person is when they first approach me because I think a lot of times we are trying to change ourselves or another person and I don't think people change and I think in the line of work that I do I feel like that's a pretty credible thing like it's a pretty credible source to say and I don't say it in a pessimistic way I even teach my clients so often it's like stop trying to make yourself this calm cool and collected person like you have a more anxious temperament and like that's okay anxious people are
Ah,
found to be slightly more intelligent and more creative and there's some like very frustrating aspects to being that temperament too but they are who they are, right? There's like a volume we can like adjust a
Totally.
little, and some communication and some give and take, but like I think part of what I try to remind myself, because dating has been so hard for me, but it's like what I tolerate now is so different than what I would tolerate before. And I'm not trying to change who I am or change another person. Like sometimes I like before I'm like, was that too much? I'm like a very high energy. I like get
Yeah.
excited over small things and I don't want to ever water that down. And if it's like aggressive or too much or too assertive or too masculine, then like I'm not for you. So
Well, can I just, I have a couple things 'cause I want to ask you a few questions on that, but you're not too masculine. So whatever, yeah, like whatever that is, like if someone's gonna think that, even you, like
yeah.
that's not you are who you are, right? And I think, even when I went into Love is Blind, my whole thing was like I have figured out who I am. I have dialed up the things that I like and dialed down the things that I don't like. And I love that analogy because I do feel like I found peace when I accepted the things about myself that I
Mhm.
hated about myself, right? Or I struggled with for myself. So I actually love that. Dial up the stuff that's good and the good things about the parts you don't like about you, and dial down things that you can actually control, right?
Yeah.
But what I don't like, I don't want you to think you're too masculine. I mean, I don't know you very well, but
Yeah.
there's someone out there that you'll be just the right amount of masculine for, and that's the hope. So I hope it's not something you beat yourself up on. But oh, go ahead.
Thank you. No, I was just gonna say I appreciate you saying that. I think it's always a little confusing too, because I think when you think of yourself or another person, whatever you find maybe challenging or frustrating about them is also inadvertently their strength or what you enjoy about
Yeah.
them. So like I think I've definitely gotten better and probably have some work, but it's like you want me to be so many men's. I want a woman who's self-sufficient, doesn't need me, has her own stuff going on, right? Got that through my independence and my quote unquote masculinity, right? So
Hmm.
you want me to have all those things, but then also don't have those things when like I don't. And I'm not saying this is like women probably do the same thing to men, right? But it's just been interesting because I'm like, if you want that piece of me, you also have to get this piece of me too.
Right. Well, you
So
know what I've always said? You have to love that piece. And I had this relationship and it totally changed my perspective on this stuff. I had and she did stuff that would have annoyed the fuck out of me if other people that I had dated had done it. And
yeah.
then with her, I found it cute.
Aw.
And that was with my ex-wife too. Like there were things that she did that would have driven me nuts if it was most people. But when
Yeah.
she did it, I was just like, she's just being,
Aw.
it's like that kind of thing. And so I think like you have to love someone not in spite of their faults, but because of their faults, because that's the nuance of what makes them human.